Logically, ghosts and the paranormal do not exist. It is impossible. Things flying across the room with no force behind them, writings on the wall with no pencils in any hands, Ouija board answering questions that clearly result from the fearful shaking fingers of those participating. Science can prove or disprove anything you would like it to, but what about the classic law? Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Where does this energy of a human heart beating, feeling, and remembering travel to when a person passes? An imprint of a human touch, life, or existence is not erased from the place it resided and experienced the most intense throes of humanity before its departure. Or at least this is what we as fellow humans like to believe. However, science can disprove any of these thoughts.
Borley Rectory, in the tiny East Anglian hamlet whose name it bears, was once known as the most in
One of the most debated and controversial documented encounters of human beings with these departed spirits is of the Borley Rectory, a former monastery in the 13th century. Legend had it that centuries back, a beautiful young novice fell madly in love with a monk. Their failed attempt to run away together resulted in an early death for both. The young novice was walled up alive, and the monk hung alive. As much as we would like to believe the hauntings to be true stories, it is thought to believe the haunting at Borley Rectory to be nothing but the ravings of an attention-seeking madwoman. Mary Ann, who liked to be called Mary Ann Forster, was the young wife of the good Reverend Lionel Forster, but only after running away from home in her homeland of England and being married at 15 to a man 7 years her senior, having a child and then being convinced it was actually her brother, of course. These actions do not condone an emotionally stable young woman. In fact, she had 3 subsequent weddings in 2 years after this first wedding, all before the age of 17. Eventually, Lionel Foyster, a good friend of Marianne's parents, requested Marianne's hand in marriage, not to mention he was 21 years her senior. Even after being married, she kept a lover, Francois Darles, the father of a playmate one of her children enjoyed. Now, taking a step back and looking at this situation, the woman Marianne Foyster seems hyperactive. How could an attention-seeking young woman married to an old man, living out in the boonies, resist temptation? The reputation of Borley Rectory holds. Marianne experienced supposedly, every kind of encounter with the ghosts imaginable. She reported it being thrown from her bed, objects whizzing past her ears, and bruises all over her body she could not explain. She also experienced writings on the walls saying things like, "Marianne, help, get," or "Marianne, light, mask prayers." These things, however, when examining Marianne's life, could be explained. Marianne, as we mentioned before, had a lover named Francois Darles, father of a young playmate of her sons. Darles was notorious for his violence against women. This explains the bruises on her body that she may have not wanted to explain to her husband, that she pretended to be very devoted to. Her actual husband was getting older and older and had a very bad memory, which could explain any moved or hidden items. Also, the writings on the wall be explained because there is reason to believe that Marianne was a secret Catholic. The writings on the wall could be the manifestations of her silent faith, making Catholics seem almost like victims in her spiritual situation, in a situation surrounded by Protestants. The cherry on the cake lies in the fact that Lionel Foyster was reported to have never seen any of these events happen. In fact, many of them would happen as soon as he turned his back. After the Foysters removed themselves from the situation, the Borley Rectory was occupied by Harry Price, a psychical investigator, for exactly 1 year, accompanied by several assistants. Except for one experience with a Ouija board and a planchette describing the supposed ghostly nun that resided in the rectory, nothing of great interest was ever found. I know it's hard to admit something as scary and exciting as the haunting of Borley Rectory to be not real. Many people have trouble admitting that it is not. As I myself originally tried to write this essay proving the opposite point, I find the real matter of interest to be the mental health of Marianne Foyster. What would cause her to do these things? Did she really believe these things were real? Illnesses in the human mind is really what should intrigue us in this situation. What should scare us in this situation? What if she really did think these things were real? She could have killed someone, hurt herself, her children. The possibilities are endless. Here's another thought. What if the ghosts made her do all these things? What if she really was nothing but a victim in a situation she had no control over? Perhaps we will never know. Never since the demolishing of the actual building could any more supernatural feelings be had by anyone. The site rests today finally in peace. The Borley Rectory is indeed a place of fright and wonder, but the reasons for this are a lot more real and terrifying than we can imagine. Human insanity is the real story here, the manic drive of a woman that we will never understand.